September 24th, 1943. 18,000 feet above the Solomon Sea, east of Bougainville. The cockpit is already hot, the air thick with fuel fumes and sweat. Lieutenant Edward Butch O'Hare, Jr. tightens his grip on the control stick as the blue Pacific rolls endlessly beneath his wings. Ahead, sunlight flashes off aluminum shapes. Japanese fighters, climbing fast, confident, almost playful in the way they bank toward the Americans. You can hear it even through the engine's roar, the Hellcat straining as it climbs. The radio crackles with clipped voices. Someone mutters a curse. Another pilot laughs nervously. The enemy planes, sleek, narrow, painted pale gray, are Mitsubishi A6M Zeros, veterans of the Pacific War. They've shredded Wildcats, humiliated inexperienced American pilots, and written a brutal reputation in fire and wreckage since Pearl Harbor. And right now, the Japanese pilots can see exactly what they're facing. A Grumman F6F Hellcat. To them, it looks ridiculous. The Zero pilots roll their aircraft slightly, almost taunting. The Hellcat is bulky, thick-winged, with a massive radial engine up front. It doesn't dance through the air. It doesn't look elegant. Compared to the Zero, it seems overweight, an American brute trying to fly a knife fight. In Japanese cockpits, there is laughter. They've seen this type before, or so they think. Another clumsy American fighter, another easy kill. Butch O'Hare doesn't laugh. He watches the Zeros peel off into position, counting them silently. 6, maybe 8. They're spreading out, trying to lure the Hellcats into a turning fight. That's how the Japanese have won every time. Tight turns, feather-light controls, a ballet in the sky where the Zero always outmaneuvers its prey. O'Hare knows the rule. Never turn with a Zero. The Hellcat wasn't built for that. Below him, the sea glints like broken glass. Above, thin clouds stretch into nothing. The sun is at the Americans' backs. Good. But the Zeros are climbing hard, engines screaming, confident they can pull tighter, faster, better. A Japanese pilot, Petty Officer First Class Kenji Tanaka, leans forward in his cockpit. He's 22, a combat veteran with victories over British and American aircraft. Through his gun sight, the Hellcat looks like a flying anvil. He grins. Too heavy, he thinks, too slow. He rolls into a tight left turn, inviting the American to follow. O'Hare doesn't. Instead, he pushes the nose down. The Hellcat drops like a stone. The Zero pilot blinks, surprised. That wasn't supposed to happen. The American aircraft accelerates rapidly, its massive Pratt & Whitney engine howling as gravity and raw horsepower combine. In seconds, the Hellcat has gained speed the Zero can't match without tearing its wings apart. O'Hare pulls back on the stick. The Hellcat surges upward in a brutal climbing arc, far steeper than the Japanese pilot expects. 650 caliber machine guns line up, the gun sight flashing red. O'Hare squeezes the trigger. The sound is deafening. The Hellcat shudders as streams of tracers tear through the air. The Zero explodes in fragments of fabric, metal, and flame, spiraling toward the sea. The laughter stops. Japanese pilots scatter, shocked. This isn't how this is supposed to go. The Hellcat shouldn't be able to dive like that. It shouldn't be able to climb back up with so much energy. It definitely shouldn't be able to absorb punishment and keep flying. But it does. Another Zero lines up on O'Hare's tail, cannons flashing. Shells slam into the Hellcat's fuselage. The aircraft jolts violently. Warning lights blink. The cockpit fills with the smell of burning oil. O'Hare grunts, but the plane holds together. Any other American fighter he's flown would be bleeding fuel, losing control, or already falling. The Hellcat shrugs it off like a boxer taking a glancing punch. O'Hare dives again, faster, deeper. The airframe screams as the speed climbs past 380 miles per hour. Dangerous territory for a Zero to follow. The Japanese pilot tries anyway. His aircraft begins to shudder. Control surfaces stiffen. The Zero was never built for this kind of speed. O'Hare pulls up at the last second, the Hellcat's wings biting hard into the air. The Zero overshoots, just for a heartbeat. That heartbeat is enough. Another burst, another fireball, another Japanese fighter gone. Around the sky, similar scenes unfold. Hellcats dive, climb, absorb hits, and strike back with overwhelming firepower. The Zeros still turn tighter. They're still beautiful machines. But beauty doesn't matter when the fight changes. And the fight has changed. Back at Japanese bases, surviving pilots will talk in low voices about a new American fighter. One that doesn't play by the old rules. One that refuses to turn, refuses to break, and kills from angles they don't expect. They will stop laughing. But none of this came out of nowhere. The Hellcat was not an accident. It was born from American failure, blood, and wreckage. Designed specifically to kill the Zero. And its story begins long before this fight, in a war America was desperately losing in the air. June 4th, 1942. 10,000 feet above the Pacific Ocean, northwest of Midway Atoll. Smoke trails scar the sky. Burning aircraft fall in slow, helpless spirals toward the sea. The Battle of Midway is raging, and for American naval aviators, it is chaos balanced on the edge of annihilation. Ensign George Gay, alone in the water below, watches Japanese Zeros slice through American formations with surgical precision. Wildcats, stubby, underpowered, outclassed, try to climb, try to turn, try to fight. Most never make it home. In cockpits across the Pacific, the verdict is already clear. The Mitsubishi A6M-0 is superior. It climbs faster, it turns tighter, it outruns almost everything the U.S. Navy can put in the air. Its pilots, hardened by years of combat in China, seem untouchable. Every engagement reinforces the same brutal lesson. If you dogfight a Zero on its terms, you die. Back in the United States, engineers at Grumman Aircraft Engineering Corporation don't read these reports like history. They read them like autopsy results. On Long Island, New York, inside factory offices that smell of oil and cigarette smoke, Grumman designers pin combat summaries to corkboards. Bullet holes, structural failures, pilot testimony written in shaking hands. One phrase appears again and again, outturned and destroyed. The U.S. Navy doesn't ask Grumman to build a better Wildcat. They ask for something else entirely. A fighter that can survive being hit. A fighter that can dive faster than a Zero can follow. A fighter with so much firepower that one good burst ends the fight. Grumman engineers understand immediately. This will not be a graceful airplane. Chief Engineer Bob Hall sketches thick wings, a massive engine, heavy armor plating around the cockpit, and self-sealing fuel tanks. The Pratt & Whitney R2800 Double Wasp, one of the most powerful radial engines ever built, is chosen despite its size and weight. The result is monstrous by fighter standards. Test pilots nickname it the Ironworks. The Navy gives it a simple designation, F6F Hellcat. When the first prototype flies in June 1942, it's obvious this aircraft will never outturn a Zero. But that's not the point. It accelerates like nothing else. It dives like a hammer dropped from the sky. And when engineers deliberately shoot holes into its fuselage during ground tests, it keeps flying. This plane is built for survival. Meanwhile, Japanese confidence remains unshaken. In training schools across Japan and occupied territories, Zero pilots are taught that American aircraft are fragile. One good burst, one tight turn, and the enemy is finished. The Zero's long wings and feather-like construction make it a dream to fly, but also a gamble. Few Japanese pilots realize how close that gamble is to disaster. They don't know that American analysts have discovered the Zero's fatal weakness, speed. At high velocity, the Zero becomes stiff, sluggish, and dangerous to its own pilot. Its lack of armor means even glancing hits can be catastrophic. It is deadly only when the fight stays slow and turning. The Hellcat is designed to ensure it never does. By late 1942, Hellcats begin arriving in the Pacific. Fresh paint, new squadrons, pilots barely out of training, many with fewer than 100 flight hours. Japanese pilots laugh when they see them. The Hellcat looks like a truck with wings. At Rabaul, veteran aces dismiss it as another American experiment. Too heavy, too clumsy, too slow to matter. They've beaten Wildcats. They've beaten P-40s. This one will be no different. But the first clashes tell a different story. American pilots are trained aggressively. They are told over and over, do not turn, dive, zoom climb, hit hard and disengage. Trust the aircraft, trust its armor. The Hellcat becomes a teacher as much as a weapon. Pilots learn that they can take hits and keep fighting. They learn that Zeros cannot follow them into steep dives without losing control. They learn that 650 caliber machine guns, firing together, shred Japanese aircraft in seconds. Loss ratios begin to shift, quietly at first. 1-0 for one Hellcat, then 2 for 1, then 5. By mid-1943, the numbers are impossible to ignore. Entire Japanese squadrons are being wiped out by pilots who, months earlier, would have been easy prey. In Japanese ready rooms, the laughter fades into confusion. How is the Hellcat surviving hits that would kill a Zero instantly? How is it climbing back into the fight so quickly? Why do American pilots seem fearless, charging straight through gunfire instead of breaking away? The answer is simple, but terrifying. The Hellcat was built to absorb punishment and keep killing. And soon, it will meet the Zero in battles so large, so violent, that the fate of the Pacific Air War will be decided in a matter of hours. June 19th, 1944. Dawn over the Philippine Sea, 200 miles west of Saipan. The ocean below is calm, deceptively peaceful, a wide blue mirror broken only by the wakes of American carrier task forces cutting eastward. On the flight decks, red signal flags snap in the wind. Engines cough, then roar to life. The smell of aviation fuel hangs heavy in the humid air. This morning, everything comes down to the sky. Lieutenant David McCampbell, commander of Air Group 15, rolls his Hellcat forward as deck crews scatter. His canopy is already streaked with salt spray. Somewhere beyond the horizon, hundreds of Japanese aircraft are climbing to meet them. McCampbell knows the stakes. If Japanese carrier Aviation breaks through today, American invasion forces at Saipan could be annihilated. The Imperial Japanese Navy has thrown everything it has left into this fight. Experienced pilots, newly trained replacements, desperate hope. And they are flying the Zero. Radar operators aboard U.S. carriers report massive inbound formations. Not dozens, hundreds. Bogies, multiple groups, bearing 270. Hellcats claw into the sky in waves, climbing hard. forming up into loose formations that glitter in the rising sun. Below, the carriers shrink into gray dots. Above, contrails already streak the sky where the first contacts are being made. Japanese pilots see the Hellcats coming. From the cockpit of his Zero, Lieutenant Junior Grade Hiroshi Nakamura feels a flicker of unease. He has heard the rumors, stories of American fighters that refuse to die, pilots who dive straight through cannon fire and come back for more. But rumors don't win wars. He tightens his turn, searching for an opening. The sky explodes. Hellcats dive from above, engines screaming, their speed almost unreal. They don't circle. They don't hesitate. They strike once, hard, then climb away in long, brutal arcs. Zeros try to follow. Many cannot. Wings shudder. Controls stiffen. Pilots feel the aircraft fighting them, the design limits screaming in protest. Some Zeros tear apart mid-dive, wings snapping clean off. Others overshoot helplessly, exposed, easy targets. McCampbell spots a Japanese formation below him, 4 aircraft climbing in a tight cluster. He pushes the nose down slightly, aligns his gun sight, and fires a short burst. 1 Zero disintegrates. He pulls up, rolls, dives again. Another burst, another kill. Around him, the sky is filled with twisting contrails, black smoke and falling wreckage. Radio chatter is frantic but controlled. American pilots call out targets, altitude, direction. They've trained for this. Japanese communications dissolve into chaos. In one engagement after another, the pattern repeats. Zeros attempt to lure Hellcats into turning fights. The Americans refuse. They slash through, climb away, reset, and attack again. Each pass costs Japan another aircraft, and often another experienced pilot it cannot replace. By mid-morning, the sea below is littered with debris and bodies. Japanese carrier decks wait in vain for returning aircraft. Few come back. Those that do are riddled with holes, fuel leaking, pilots shaken and silent. McCampbell is running out of ammunition. He checks his fuel, still good. He dives one last time, guns blazing, sending a Zero spinning into the ocean. As he climbs away, his kill count reaches 9. Others do even more. Lieutenant Alex Vrashiu downs 6 Japanese aircraft in 8 minutes. Entire formations are erased before they can even reach American ships. By the end of the day, the numbers are staggering. Over 300 Japanese aircraft destroyed. Most by Hellcats. American losses, a fraction of that. The battle will be remembered by a brutal nickname whispered among stunned Japanese survivors. The Great Marianas Turkey Shoot. For Japanese pilots, it is the end of an era. The Zero, once the terror of the Pacific, has been exposed. Not obsolete, not useless, but outmatched in a war that no longer favors finesse over force. For the Americans, the lesson is burned into memory. The Hellcat didn't win by being better in every way. It won by changing the rules. By refusing to turn, by refusing to brake, by turning speed, armor, and firepower into a killing rhythm, the Zero could not escape. After the Philippine Sea, Japanese carrier aviation never recovers. The skies belong to the Hellcat. And the pilots who once laughed at it now know the truth. This ugly, brutal American fighter didn't just defeat the Zero. It ended it. October 25th, 1944, late afternoon over Leyte Gulf, Philippines. The sun hangs low, staining the clouds orange and red. Smoke columns rise from burning ships below, turning the horizon into a jagged wall of fire. The largest naval battle in history is tearing itself apart across hundreds of miles of ocean. Above it all, Hellcats patrol in loose circles. Lieutenant Hamilton McWhorter III scans the sky from his cockpit, sweat running down his spine despite the altitude. Below, American destroyers zigzag through incoming fire. Somewhere out there, Japanese aircraft, whatever remains of them, are coming in low. They are not Zeros this time. They are something worse. A single-engine aircraft bursts from the clouds, flying straight and level, ignoring the Hellcats entirely. Its landing gear is fixed. Its paint is crude. There is no attempt to evade. McWhorter's stomach tightens. Kamikaze. The Hellcat dives instantly. The massive engine screams as the aircraft accelerates past 400 miles per hour. The Japanese pilot never turns. He never flinches. He is aiming for a carrier deck already choked with planes and fuel hoses. McWhorter opens fire. The Hellcat's machine guns tear into the aircraft. The wings shred. The engine explodes. The kamikaze vanishes in a white flash of flame and spray, missing its target by seconds. McWhorter pulls up hard, breathing fast. This is what the air war has become. The Zero, once flown by elite, highly trained pilots, is now often piloted by teenagers with minimal training, tasked not with winning air superiority, but with dying on command. The Imperial Japanese Navy's air arm has been hollowed out by years of losses it cannot replace. And the Hellcat is still there. Still fast. Still durable. Still lethal. By late 1944, the F6F Hellcat dominates the Pacific skies completely. Its kill ratio against Japanese aircraft stands at nearly 19-1. Squadrons rack up victories in the hundreds. American pilots, once terrified of encountering Zeros, now actively seek combat. Japanese pilots avoid Hellcats whenever possible. Those who survive describe the same nightmare. An enemy aircraft that appears suddenly from above, fires with overwhelming force, and vanishes before retaliation is possible. A machine that absorbs hits that should be fatal. A plane that punishes mistakes instantly. The Zero, by contrast, has reached the limits of its design. Attempts to improve it, more armor, heavier weapons, strip away the very qualities that once made it deadly. It becomes slower, less agile, no longer dominant in any category. Against the Hellcat, it is fighting the future with the tools of the past. On American carrier decks, Hellcats return with bullet holes, scorched paint, sometimes pieces missing entirely. Mechanics patch them up, refuel them, rearm them, and send them back out within hours. Japanese wrecks sink quietly beneath the waves. When the war ends in August 1945, the statistics are overwhelming. The Hellcat accounts for over 5,000 enemy aircraft destroyed, more than any other naval fighter in history. It didn't just defeat the Zero, it erased its legend. But numbers don't tell the whole story. The Hellcat gave American pilots confidence. It allowed them to survive long enough to learn. It turned raw recruits into aces and ensured that experience accumulated instead of being lost in flames. That is why Japanese pilots laughed when they first saw it. It didn't look like a masterpiece. It looked like a mistake. And that mistake destroyed the Zero, broke Japanese naval aviation, and helped carry the Pacific War to its brutal end. High above the ocean, long after the last shots are fired, the Hellcat's contrail fades into clear blue sky. The laughter is gone.